So I was playing with one of my friends a couple of days ago, and he happened to look at my loadout that I was using at the time, which is a pretty consistent loadout I use a lot of the time, and he was confused as to why I was running it and asked me. And so I explained to him all the reasoning behind it, and he tried it out for himself. And I'm not sure if he was swayed by, if his opinion was swayed by what I was using, but I think it's one of the stronger builds in the current meta. And for me, upon further reflection about it, I decided that it really was one of the things that pushed my gameplay from where I was at for a long time to that extra level. And I was running about a 1.6 KD previously, and now I'm up to 1.77 or 1,77, whatever. So I decided, since he didn't seem to really understand why I was doing what I was doing. I don't know if it's a common thing or not. So I'm just going to explain what my standard loadout is throughout one whole prestige. My loadouts throughout one prestige. And yeah, hopefully players can take the information that they receive through this and maybe apply either the whole or part of the concepts of what I use and why into their loadout. So yeah, I'm just going to walk through how I play out one full prestige in Hunt. And I am freshly prestige right now. So what I first do when I'm fresh off prestige is I'm trying to prepare for my further loadouts down the line. One of the main things I use is the stamina shot and vitality shot and regeneration shot line. So one of the quick ways to do that is to always go through your recruits and try to pick up one that has a stamina shot already. You get one free use off of it, you use it at the beginning of the match, and that actually pairs nicely with one of my other staple tools in this build. I almost always run Tomahawks. Or throwing axes. I think they're almost underrated. I don't know if many people use them, but for multiple reasons, I consider them to be one of the best tools in the game and one that I bring into just about every match. That being, they are basically a perfect counter for Concertina Armoreds, and that was a creature or enemy that I thought was like pretty overpowered for the PvE in the time before this was released, and a lot of that was due to the fact that I tried to manipulate the game to the point where I can use the exploit where not even an exploit, of the mechanic where if you loot someone's body when you have full tools and consumables, you get money instead of the tool or consumable as much as possible when I play. And so previously the only counter really for Concertina Armored was either to grab a lantern or just to use a fuse. That's probably the best situation that you can prepare yourself for before throwing axes. But this always wasted one tool slot for you. So if you loot something, it's going to use that instead of giving you money, which I always try to prepare early on, especially to leave myself with a lot of money for further endeavors. So throwing axe, great. Throw it at a Concertina Armored. It's a one shot if you get the headshot, which is hard. A 2-shot to the body. Pick them back up after the fact and keep on going and loot whoever you can further down the line. The problem with this is with the recent update, they made it so that you need to use the combat axe in order to unlock them. And this pairs nicely with my previous statement as to always go for the stamina shot first, whether or not you can get it through this or just use enough syringes to unlock it. It's like 5, I think, for the first one. Yeah, 5 healing items. You get the weak stamina shot, and from that point, once you unlock it, I would say to you bring 2 in for a while, just to use them at the beginning, or even more if you really wanted to waste it. Because that's really kind of how the unlocking system works. You really just want to waste as much as you can into yourself as possible to get those further unlocks. But use the stamina shot. You can kill bosses with the combat axe. I played one match on this fresh prestige. I ended up with this loadout. I got The throwing axe is unlocked because I killed the boss. I killed zombies throughout the early game. Whenever I use stamina shots, I pop them at the beginning. And if I get another one later in the line, I'll use that. But for the first, I think 5 minutes, weak stamina, I believe, is 5 minutes. Yeah. For the first 5 minutes of the match, I just kill as much as I can with that axe to try to unlock the combat axes. And that is not exactly a necessity for my build. You know, this is just convenience. Choke bombs, if you're playing solo, you don't need them. They're very circumstantial. They're really just like a courtesy to your teammates. If your teammates are burning, it's a nice thing to try to put them out. Make the effort. Show that you're a team player and that you're not going to invalidate their health later on if you do get the res in the clutch if they are down. So I always bring choke bombs. I always bring throwing axes as early as I can. Even though they're expensive, they're pretty nice. Health pack, dusters. I think the dusters are the most reliable of the melees. Knuckle knife is a good alternative, but for me, I just go straight with the knuckles because I constantly screw up the knuckle knife when fighting an emulator. I'll pop them on accident. If you spam the button too fast, it will register as one long attack instead of one or two short attacks. So that's going to be my staple across the board for tools. That doesn't change at all. For my consumables, this is my standard early game loadout. It's kind of expensive now that they changed stamina shots and antidote shot prices. But this is what I'm looking for. This just for health. I'm not a big fan of vitality shots anymore. The way my play has changed a lot recently. Been updating the game pretty consistently and changing the meta. Vitality shots, I think, are overrated. That might be a controversial take, but that's how I feel right now. Regardless, to unlock further ones down the line, I'll go with one of these. If it's very early game, I'll just load in with like 4 at a time and whatever stamina shots I can get my hand on instead of those. And by the end of the match, I forgot to do one on the loadout I was doing before, but I'll just like have my teammates punch me so I can pop more of them into my body and unlock further upgrades down the line. And they only cost 10, so it's like, why not? It's really a cheap, effective way to get those unlocks. You get the stamina shot. I bring in 2 at a time. You get 10 minutes. Most PvE is going to be over between the first 20 minutes of the match. And if there is any further down the line, like a second boss that you're running to, by that point you're probably safe from PvP. Odds are you've killed everyone or they've extracted or died themselves to PvE, whatever it be. So 10 minutes into the match is what I strive for as the key time frame where the chaos in action happens. Past that point, you can kill the boss to your own content, whatever it may be. Antidote shots, 10-minute time frame of immunity to poison, one of the greatest items I can imagine. When I started using this was really the turning point where I started investing in myself as a player more so than investing in like a single item, like an explosive that might lead to a single or a double kill. When I started using these, the large antidote shot was a full 60 minutes, which is excessive, but also very nice if you had the money to splurge for it. You're never going to take poison throughout the whole fight. But those days are gone, and now you just have to opt for going with either 10... Is that 10? Yeah, 10 minutes with this one or 20 minutes with the larger one. Always good to have. If you get a poison bomb put on your body, don't even have to worry about it. See, poison traps, doesn't even matter. And I'll give Crytek credit where it counts. They made it so that you unlock the antidote shot at level 1, essentially. I think to play your first match, you get it. It's sort of weird. It's not on the bloodline. I don't believe. Yeah, it's not on the bloodline at all, anywhere, anymore. Because it used to be unlocked after you unlock poison bombs. You'd use 5 poison bombs to get the weak one. Absolutely a good decision on their part to move that to a earliest unlock. I'd never understood why they made it so that the poison bomb unlocks first, and that way there was no counter to it at that level. If you were competing with other people in the same bloodline rank as you, the poison just becomes too powerful, and there's no counter unless you just loot one randomly. So I always run those. This my standard early game loadout. I got these. And essentially the idea is you're buffing yourself as a character. And so at any engagement you get into, you're not going to run out of stamina early in the fight, early in the match. And that can be huge if it comes to it and you need to use a melee, whether it be the Henry with the riposte. There's a lot of good options for melee, and melee's already overpowered. Let's face it, it's like a one-hit kill in almost all circumstances, depending on whether or not you're using like a tool-based melee, which could be like a two-shot, the knife being one, or the heavy knife, which can be a one-shot if you hit in the head. But most other melees in the game, especially if you're running the combat axe early to unlock the axes, they go from being balanced by stamina to being powerful with stamina shot. And so you slay bosses, you slay everything. And if you get your hands on like a bomb lance early, if you pick something up off of someone else's body, then you're just going to be so powerful as a player rather than, an explosive where you're powerful in one instance. I think they're super overrated, but I'll get into that further later on with my better builds. Another thing to note, early game, I always go for the Mosin late game, and it's super expensive, but there is a way to maximize your money according to the different Mosin using their expensiveness in your favor, actually. And essentially, the way I get there is throughout prestige rank or bloodline level 1 through 72. One thing I do is I always look out for labels, I look out for Mosins, I take them and then I bank them. I don't use them, but I hoard them for later on. By the time you hit rank 72, you have a large enough stock, especially if you play quick play. There's a lot of Mosins out in quick play that are just up for grabs. By the time you hit that level where you can earn progress on their line, you'll have so many of them that you can easily get to the Mosin bayonet with just the ones that you've used before. And then if you pair that with the stamina shot, you can then use the Mosin bayonet to kill all PvE, essentially, except the emulators. And so every armored you see, that's a free, I think it's like 50 or 60 XP directly into your Mosin that you can use to get further unlocks. And the way I play that is you unlock these things with the Mosins you've already grabbed, and then you sell them. The Mosins you can't sell that you've taken with you, what are they called? You can't sell the contraband Mosins. So you just use them to unlock other ones that you can sell, and then that's like a free $500 for every one you unlock. The shorter ones are like $200. And then you get to the Avdomat. If you can unlock the Avdomat, you get a free grand when you sell it. And there's no reason to use the Avdomat. It sucks. I hate it. One of my least favorite guns in the game. But it is a free grand. Just bank it. And then the whole time throughout that whole process, and I do the same thing with the label if I find any, you use them to unlock further down the line, sell them, get that money, but you're using these very powerful rifles that are some of the best in the game, some of the best weapons that aren't shotguns or melee or any of the other things I'm pissed off about at the moment. So that's my strategy early game. I'm banking and saving stuff for later. Another way you can do that is by, instead of buying perks, you're wanting to go for the gauntlet in most matches, go for kills, and get to at least 25 on your character so you can retire them. I retire my characters until I hit 72. That's really my next stage. At some point in between that, I'll get to this stage of my gameplay. Same tools, different skins, because they're cool, but I've upgraded all my syringes. This is the stage in the game where I have the least amount of gameplay in, because I usually upgrade to my next loadout at some point soon. And some of these are actually quite difficult to unlock. The full stamina shots and the antidote shots, you're going to be using quite a bit of the other syringes to get to that point. Vitality shots, like I said, I don't think they are as good as people think. They're overrated. And one of the reasons I believe that is because of my philosophy on the game at this point. Is that every second matters. And if you take 1 second to waste time thinking about one thing or the other, making, a decision one way or the other, whether or not you're going to get a res, whether or not you're going to heal, or throw a grenade. Every second you waste is a second that you're giving to the enemy team. And if it's a clutch moment, if it's a 1v3 and you got 3 people coming at you, that's 3 seconds worth of gameplay for every one that you trade for yourself for failing to take action. And so, with that in mind, I found myself when I run the Vitality shot to constantly be in a mental debate whether or not I should full heal with the Vitality or use the health packs. And this is one of the reasons why I think they're overrated, because there shouldn't be a debate in your mind as to what you should heal with. I think the better option, instead of paying for the expensive Vitality shot, is to almost always use health packs, and to buff those health packs with perks at any chance you get, whether it be through recruiting tier 2s and 3s, whether it be even selling your legendary hunters perks with blood bonds to purchase other perks. You should always run, first off, my first perk I always run in every case that I can do is the Physician perk, which reduces the time to heal with the health pack. This means that in a fight, you're back in the fight faster. And one of the easiest to fall into traps of being a less experienced player, an average player, if you will, is that a lot of people I see who aren't as good as me skill-wise will constantly push with low health. They'll decide, I'm just going to finish the fight rather than, healing up, waiting it out, and then pushing at a more appropriate time. And the reason that this is a huge mistake is that if you understand the game to a better level than most of these players, you'll realize that most things in the game can one-shot you at that level. If you're missing even one small chunk, that's 25 health, you have 125 health. If you get hit by an uppercut, that's 130 damage. If you get hit by a Mosin, that's 136. A Sparks, obviously, that's 149. That's going to kill you even if you've taken a sliver of damage from a zombie punching you. Shotguns, they're going to map you from that much further if you're missing any health. And so a really good mindset to be in is to try to keep your health as full as possible, and to understand if you're missing a chunk through it being burned off or you dying, that's going to be a greater chance that you're going to be hit by something and instantly killed. And, there's always a chance that you get headshotted. It's, so something you have to keep in your mind that, you're going to get shot in the head every once in a while and you're going to die, and there's nothing you can really do about that. The enemy just was more accurate than you. But being a high skill player means trying to lower your risk of being killed as much as possible, fitting your playstyle. And for me, I'm a pretty aggressive player, especially with my further loadouts. I'll, explain later that I play very aggressive. I try to end the match as quickly as possible and get the fullest win as possible. And so to minimize risk, the thing you want to do is to be at full health at all times. And while the Vitality shot is a good choice for filling your health if you need to, I think the perks are just better, and to always have a reliable health pack on hand. And just always think, if I need health, I'm going for that health pack. And that means Physician for 1, Doctor for 2, and Frontiersman. Those are your 3 best perks for maximizing your health maximization. Making sure that if you need to heal, you heal up quick, you heal up a lot, because essentially if you have Doctor, that's going to give a double health to your health packs. You're going to get 100 health back, which is basically a Vitality shot. Your last chunk's always going to be 50. If you wait for it to get full and then heal up, you're going to be full. If you've taken a Sparks hit, for example, and you heal immediately, that's the only chance you're going to have to not fully heal from a doctored health pack. And that's because if you have a small chunk on the end, it's only going to heal to just below that, and you'll need to use another. But the odds of that happening are pretty slim. The odds of you needing to use 2 health packs because of a doctored health pack is slim. So yeah, Vitality shots, not important. I use them there because at this point I've had them unlocked. They're not going to be the last thing I need to unlock out of this line. Antidotes are usually the one that I need least, or have last. They require you to use 10 items for the poison bomb, and then I believe another 15 items. So you unlock Antidote, you have to use 25 Antidotes. And so that means when I am running my first loadout, I will actually adapt it based on how far I'm reaching in my 2 lines. If I already have medium stamina shots unlocked, I'll go with 1 medium stamina shot over these 2, and then 2 antidote shots, which gives me 20 minutes of each. And so, running those 2, you get the full buffs, but you unlock further antidotes faster. So, you increase your poison line by 2 instead of 1 every match. And also, you get, further in loot boxes. You can use those just whenever you get them, just to progress further until you make it to this point. And this is a good starting point for the late game. If I hit 72 before I reach my last 2 loadouts, I've probably been doing something wrong. I haven't been paying attention. Or maybe I've just been winning too fast. I could be fully winning gauntlets so many times and retiring that I didn't even get the point to use these. But if I pay attention, and if you pay attention, you can have these unlocked pretty quickly. And that leads me to late game. And this is essentially if you are a player who doesn't prestige, you can take this loadout and just use it for the rest of your gameplay if you have the money for it. So essentially these 2 loadouts that I have last are in tandem with each other. They're both my endgame loadouts. Same tools, I use those for everything. I use the antidote shot, one of them. I use the stamina shot, one of them. I use regeneration shot, one of them. And I use a frag bomb. So essentially this gives me 20 minutes of antidote, 10 minutes of stamina, and 10 minutes of regeneration. So, early game, this is not early game. Early into the match, you have to be very aggressive if you're using this loadout. This means you've got to get to a boss before the first 10 minutes and kill them. You've got to get into a fight with at least a team, drawing people in as much as possible, hopefully by killing the boss already, so that way your regeneration shot gets as much play as possible. And the frag, I'm not really a big fan of explosives, but they are very powerful, so you might as well have one along with you to score some free easy kills. But you'll notice that this is the first time I use the regeneration shot throughout my gameplay of the Prestige. The regeneration shot plays in tandem with the first aid kit as you play. Because if you're playing as I do and you want to only think about using health packs as you play, that means that you don't want to have to waste them early game by taking damage from random PvE. One thing I've noticed a lot lately, and I don't remember it being a previous thing, is they spawn meatheads on clues a lot more than I remember. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention before. But a meathead is kind of a big problem. It's going to require you to make some noise or lure it off. It's going to waste your time. But with this build, you can ignore the poison while grabbing the clue. The leech gets you. The meathead hits you with this, hopefully not cleaver. The cleaver will make you bleed, and that's kind of dangerous. But the meathead will hit you, you get the clue, and you get out. And then you just regenerate as you head to your next clue. You have to kind of worry about... getting caught out with low health at that point. But that's where Vigor comes in. Vigor is a great perk to pair with this loadout. You get the regeneration shot. It slows your regeneration overall, but makes it so that you heal chunks. And Vigor kind of cancels that. I mean, of course, you're left kind of out if you're using Dark Sight, you can't see very well. You don't have as much audio cues available because the Dark Sight makes noise. But it's a good way to get health back without using your health packs. And that's really one of the ways that I maximize not just how powerful I am as a player, but how smart I am as a player. Again, I'm just trying to make it so that first aid kit is the only thing I use for health outside of just regenerating whenever it's necessary. If I'm in a fight and I can spend the time getting away from the team, if both my teammates are still alive at that point, I'll just use the regeneration and I'll just wait it out. I'll let my teammates, push when they need to, put pressure when they need to, suppress and cover reses, and I'll just regenerate. If I need to get it back into the fight, I'll use a first aid kit, and I won't worry about looting money. So the upgraded version of this build, which already gives you regeneration, stamina, and antidote, which should get you through the first 20 minutes of the game, pretty powerful. You're a pretty powerful character at that point, especially the first 10 minutes. You're going to be able to melee everything down without problem. You're going to be able to regenerate any hit you take. Very powerful. And the only thing that defines whether or not I use my upgraded version is if I roll with the perk Pack Mule. If I have Pack Mule, whether it's through using a legendary, using a tier 2 or 3, or having XP, I'll switch to this loadout. And this is where pack mule comes into play. I use only syringes across my whole consumable bar. Antidote, 2 regenerations, and a stamina shot. So that's 10 minutes of stamina, which should get me through most of the PvE of the match. 2 regeneration shots, which is 20 minutes of not having to take hits. And 1 antidote shot, which is 20 minutes of antidote. With pack mule activated, I use all of these syringes right off the beginning of the match. So I know for a fact I am this much more powerful for this amount of time, but I have 0 consumables. And pack mule comes into play there. You only need to loot 2 boxes in order to fully fill your consumable bar. You're not using health packs if you take damage because you're just regenerating it, so your tools always remain full. You get your Tomahawks back when you kill armoreds. You're not losing those. The only exception is choke bombs, but for the most part, you probably shouldn't have to use those unless, something insane happens, in which case you're probably not going to be worried about getting money off of looting people. You loot up twice, and that means your consumable bar gets filled with random items, and that is, for one, a very unique way to play. You never know how any match is going to go. You don't load in with a specific loadout, and you play it by ear. Flash bombs are great. The loot pool of the throwables and the loot pool of throwables you can get from the loot items is actually pretty powerful. You can get frag bombs, you can get flash bombs, you can get dynamite, you can get the dynamite bundle, wax dynamite, a lot of really powerful explosives that you just get randomly and for free. And considering that the shots that you use are pretty expensive, but you use them every single match. You pop them at the beginning, so they're almost always useful unless you just get killed instantly, and at that point there's no redeeming the match. One thing I always find myself doing before, I would load in with like an expensive explosive, thinking to myself, I'll get a kill with this, it'll be awesome, whatever, I gotta push myself into a situation where I use this frag bomb because I bought it. It's got to be useful to me. And then I would die with it, and it would be a complete waste of money and time and effort. At least with this, every consumable that you're purchasing, you're going to use. It's going to be in your bloodstream, making you more powerful. And the things that you get on top of that just from looting are going to be powerful on their own, and you didn't pay for them. And that's just great. One thing I learned early on is I would leave a slot open, so that way when I hit a loot box, I could use it. I was never stuck with things that I wanted to use, a very valuable purchased set of consumables. So I always get use out of my consumables and out of every loot box that I see on the map. The reason I switch between these 2 loadouts when thinking about my pack mule or not, having pack mule or not, is under this loadout, I have 1 frag that I do use just as a frag. It's expensive. You could replace it with basically anything you wanted to. You could replace it with a fire bomb for burning, hive bomb for flushing out people, anything that you want. I use frag bomb because it's easy and it's really overpowered. But it fills up a slot. I use the other 3 syringes, and then if I don't have pack mule, I only need to loot 3 times. It's not so bad. It's still a pain though. Compared to this, you only have to loot twice, and that's really where the power comes in. Because everyone you kill past this point, you're going to be able to loot as long as you didn't use one of your consumable items. And so that's going to rack up your money in order to use the Mosins that I basically spend the last 28 levels using almost nothing but Mosins and Labels and very powerful rifles, which win me a lot of games. I try to blow through the early games so that way I don't get stuck with a bunch of garbage weapons, Winfields. I'll level them up as I go just because they're what I'm using. I try to load in with very cheap things and load out with very expensive items, and by the time I reach the end game, I have a lot of money on average to spend on these powerful weapons that get me wins and get me higher KD. So essentially that's my loadouts across an entire bloodline, prestige, ranking, whatever. I think it's really powerful. I've been using it for a couple of months now, and ever since the syringes, the regeneration syringes came out, they've really elevated the way I've been able to play and streamlined the way that I was able to think about how I'm going to play any given scenario. I urge you to try it out for yourself and tell me what you think in the comments. So hopefully these helped you out in one way or another. Hopefully you learned something. I'm not exactly the greatest player of Hunt of all time, but I got pretty decent stats across the board. My quick plays, I'm pretty proud of it. I think I'm ranked like 350 on the leaderboard, which isn't saying much because it's quick play and no one cares, but you know, it's not bad. And my KD and bounty hunt's pretty good for someone who generally fucks around a lot. Me and my teammates do a lot of stupid shit, but it's all in the effort of fun. So, uh, these loadouts have really helped me get this higher KD than I was at before, and I could make a quick play guide if people wanted to. I'm pretty good at it. I've got 110 hunters saved compared to 209 deaths, so it's about a 50% win-loss ratio, I believe, unless I'm missing something. Yeah, if you wanted that, I could make that for you. I've got a couple good tips and tricks that help me get wins. Hopefully, this loadout has helped you get some wins too. And if it has, if you have learned something, let me know. And give me a subscribe. Like the video. Whatever. I don't know.
Don't fight.
Alright. See ya, ducks.